Our reading focus today is main idea. So, what is the book or maybe a section of a text mostly about? So the main idea is what is it mostly about? Okay, so if we were to look at like an ice cream cone, right? Ice cream sundae. So the main idea here, if we were to look at this picture, is that it's a sundae, right? So that's the main idea. That's what it's mostly about. But then the details of this sundae is that there's sprinkles on it, there's also a caramel topping, and there's a cherry on top. But it's mainly a sundae. And these little details on the side are just what is on the ice cream. So how do we find the main idea? That's the question. Well, here's some strategies to help you. We can look at the title and the headings. So you can look at the title of the book or maybe the headings in each section of the book to see what's the main idea of this story or of this book. We look at photographs. That can really tell you what the main idea is, what the story or the book is mostly about. Look for words used multiple times. So they will most likely repeat words multiple times to tell you what that main idea is. Reread the first and the last sentence. So that's a strategy that some people use. They'll read the first sentence in the book and the last sentence in the book. And that gives them a clue of what the story is about or what the book is about. Today we're going to be reading I Wonder Why Penguins Can't Fly and other questions about the polar lands. So the North Pole and the South Pole. We're going to be talking about those two polar lands, what kind of animals are on there, and just some information about the land. Now this is a non-fiction text. We've heard a lot of fiction text so far for our read out louds, right? A lot of fiction, so not true stories. This is a nonfiction. That means that this is all facts. This is all facts about the North and the South Pole. We open up here, we have the table of contents. So since this is a nonfiction book, sometimes you'll find a table of contents about what the story is going to be about. So I'll have these subtopics about each page and what that page is specifically going to talk about. There's a lot. Here is our first page. Where are the poles? The North Pole lies at the center of the Arctic Circle. At the North Pole, wherever you turn, you will be facing south. So the North Pole is up here, and here's the Arctic Circle. So when you're in the North Pole, can't go any further north, right? Yeah, so wherever you turn, you're going to be facing south. The South Pole is at the opposite end of Earth, in the middle of the Antarctic Circle on the continent of Antarctica. So here is Antarctic, the Antarctic Circle, and it's on the continent. You can't really see it there, but the continent down here is Antarctica. Why is Antarctica the highest and lowest continent? The thick ice sheets makes Antarctica the world's highest continent, which an average height of 7,900 feet, at 8,383 below sea level. The Bentley Subglacial Trench is West Antarctica, is the lowest place on Earth that is not underwater. Wow, cool fact. So here it's showing that. Why are there 4 poles? Earth is a giant magnet, which is why a compass points to the north. The geographic north and south poles are fixed points, but because Earth's magnetic field is always changing, the magnetic north and south poles move every day. Oh, very interesting. How could north become south? Every so often, Earth's magnetic field reverses, so a compass that points north would then point south. This last occurred more than 780,000 years ago, and scientists think that it is due to happen again. Ooh, so someday this might happen again. That is cool. Can desert be snowy? Very cold air cannot hold much water, so it rarely snows at the poles. Parts of the Arctic are as dry as the Sahara Desert, and Antarctica is the driest continent on Earth. In fact, it is the world's biggest desert, so it never snows there. Isn't that interesting? It's the driest one. Driest continent on the Earth. Were the poles always frozen? At about 100 to 65 million years ago, the climates were warmer than it is today. The polar ice caps did not exist. Forests reached as far as the South Pole and were home to dinosaurs, such as, and I might say this wrong, Anaerstopelida. That's a hard one. How cold are the poles? In Antarctica in 1983, a temperature of negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded, cold enough to freeze the mercury in a thermometer. The winter temperature of the North Pole averages about negative 29 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very cold. That is 30 degrees Fahrenheit colder than a freezer. So Antarctica is even colder than a freezer. That is crazy. Why is Antarctica colder than the Arctic? Antarctica is a continent surrounded by the sea, while the Arctic is an ocean surrounded by land. Water stays warmer than land during the winter. So on average, Antarctica is about 30 degrees colder than the Arctic. That makes sense. How are icebergs formed? This is an interesting one. Icebergs are large, huge blocks of freshwater ice that break off from glaciers or from ice shelves and float out to sea. So this is an ice shelf here, and so it would have broken off and floated out to sea. The largest known iceberg was bigger than the island of Jamaica, and the tallest one was the height of a 55-story building. Wow. How thick is a polar ice? Sea ice in the Arctic is about 10 feet thick during the winter. The thickest ice is found in Bentley Subglacial Trench, the lowest point in Antarctica. There, the ice measures up to 15,670 feet. That is almost 6 times the height of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So I think I'm saying that right. The Burj Khalifa is one of the tallest buildings. It is the tallest building in the world, and that is in Dubai. What is permafrost? Permafrost is ground that is frozen all year long. In 2007, a perfectly preserved baby mammoth, thought to have died 10,000 years ago, was unearthed from the permafrost in Siberia, Russia. So it perfectly keeps the animal preserved, so it doesn't decay or anything. Very cool. What lights up the sky? So if you were to go to the North Pole, you would actually see the sky lit up at night. And this is what it's going to talk about. The solar wind carries electrical charged particles from the sun towards Earth. Some particles enter our atmosphere above the magnetic pole and collide with Earth's gases, creating a fantastic light show called the Northern or Southern Lights. Very cool. And they also call it the Aurora Borealis. What is diamond dust? When the air temperature is very low, water vapors in the atmosphere freeze to form tiny ice crystals. These catch the sun's light and sparkle like a sparkling of diamonds in the sky. Ooh, that would be really cool to see, huh? Which dogs are found on the pole at the pole? Sundogs are bright flares that appear on either side of the sun when ice crystals in the sky reflect the sunlight. Moon dogs are sometimes seen too when the moon is very bright. So that's what this image is. These bright flares that appear on either side of the sun, or sometimes if that was the moon, it would look the same. Very cool. Zoom it in a little bit so you can see that. Does anyone live in Antarctica? No one lives there permanently, but Antarctica is visited by about 4,000 scientists during the summer. Only about 1,000 stay to brave the cold, dark winter though. So mainly scientists are the only ones that live on Antarctica. Who first came to the poles? American explorers Frederick Cook and Robert Peary both claimed to have reached the North Pole first. Cook in 1908 and Peary in 1909. Roald Amundsen led the first expedition to the South Pole, arriving in December 1911. Pretty cool. Do people still build igloos? The word igloo means house in the Inuit language. So people in the Arctic do live in igloos, but igloos made of snow are now built only as a temporary shelter during hunting trips. Are there any polar plants? The poles are covered in ice all year long, but plants grow in less cold areas called the tundras. For a few weeks in the middle of the summer, the Arctic tundra is carpeted in color as plants that have spent the winter beneath the snow burst into bloom. How do plants survive the cold? Tundra plants huddle close to the ground in tight clumps and often have hairy leaves and stems to protect them from the cold. Cup-shaped flowers follow the sun as it moves across the sky. So that's pretty cool. They adapted so they have hair around them to protect them, to keep them warm. So that's how they adapted to their environment. Which tree grows in the treeless tundra? The word tundra comes from a Finnish word meaning treeless plain. So you would not expect to find any trees there. Yet a type of willow only 8 inches tall has adapted to the cold, windy climate and provide food for the caribou, musk oxen, Arctic hares, and the lemmings. Cool. There it is. Here's the Arctic willow. How do animals survive the Arctic winter? In the winter, temperature in the Arctic drop to a negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So polar animals grow a thick winter coat to keep them warm. The Arctic fox even has fur on the bottom of its feet and uses its bushy tail as a blanket. And here, I thought this was kind of interesting. It says, an Arctic fox hears small animals moving in their underground burrows. It pounces to break through the snow and then grabs its prey. Pretty cool fact. Why aren't polar bears white? If you plucked a few hairs from a polar bear, you would find that they are colorless. Like snow and ice, the hairs are translucent. Light passes through them, but they look white to us. I remember my kids last year, we learned about that, about snowflakes. They're translucent. When you layer them on top of each other, they turn into a white color. Which creatures change color? Arctic wolves, foxes, and ermines turn white in the winter so they can creep up on their prey without being seen. Arctic hares and collared lemmings grow white fur too, so predators can find them difficult to spot in the snow. Cool. Which animal bullies bigger creatures? Aha, the wolverine, which is right here. This is a wolverine, is a fast and furious hunter armed with strong jaws and sharp claws. Arctic hare, squirrels, and birds are easy prey, but this dog-sized predator also steals kills from bears and cougars and sometimes attacks much larger animals such as caribou. Ah, that's interesting. Brave animals. How do musk oxen protect their young? Adult musk oxen have sharp horns that can kill or injure the Arctic wolves that prey on the herd. When predators are nearby, the adult form a circle around the young, creating a spiky barricade with their horns. Yep, gotta protect their young. Who puts puffins in danger? Puffins' natural predator includes gulls, skuas, foxes, sharks, and killer whales. But humans are the greatest threat to their survival. Puffins feed on fish and other sea creatures, so they are endangered by overfishing and oil spills. In some places, people still eat puffins and their eggs. Oh, I don't like that fact. Which bird migrates from pole to pole? The Arctic tern breeds on the tundra and then flies to the Antarctica as winter approaches. It makes the longest migration of any bird, traveling more than 21,750 miles each year. Wow. So that's the Arctic tern right here. Arctic tern. That was a long way to travel. Are there pirates at the poles? Skuas are nicknamed pirates because they steal food from other birds in mid-air. They target penguin colonies too, often working in pairs. While one skuas distracts a penguin, the other steals its eggs or chick. Ah, there's the skuas right there. Why can't penguins fly? Most birds have lightweight skeletons, but penguins have heavy, solid bones and a thick layer of fat to keep them warm. They would need huge wings to lift themselves up into the air. Instead, their wings have turned into small, stiff flippers that power their streamlined bodies through the water. So they're really good swimmers. Even though they have wings, they're more like fins than they are wings, right? And they're really thick and heavy, and they got thick bones in there. So it's harder for them to fly. So here's a comparison here. There's a penguin's wings, so here's his bone. Lots of thick layer of fat around the bone. And then this is a gull wing, so it's like a bird wing. So more feathers, there's no fat there, right? It's just feathers. Why don't polar bears eat penguins? A polar bear would have to swim a long way to eat a penguin because they live at opposite ends on Earth. Polar bears live in Arctic, and penguins are found only south of the equator. So penguins live here on the South Pole, where polar bears are up here in the North Pole. Why don't penguins eat penguins' eggs freeze? An emperor penguin egg would freeze in minutes if it were left on the ice. So the penguins balance their eggs on their feet and keep them warm inside a broad pouch. This is a flap of featherless skin that wraps around the eggs. So here's the brood pouch, and he's got his feet right in between it, keeping that egg warm. Which seal is a champion diver? The Weddell seal dives down to 2,300 feet in search of fish and squids, and they can stay underwater for more than an hour. Their strong teeth help chew breathing holes in the ice, and they sometimes blow air into cracks in the ice and startle fish, which then swim right into the seal's mouth. Ah, interesting. Where would you find a bloodless fish? The crocodile ice fish that lives in the sea around Antarctica has no red blood cells, so its blood is clear, just like water. The fish gets its name from its long snout, which is packed with white teeth. Interesting. Who is called the unicorn of the sea? The male narwhal's unicorn-like tusk is actually an overgrown tooth. When the whale is 1 year old, one of his 2 top teeth grows through his lip. A 10-year-old narwhal's tusk can be 10 feet in length. Wow, that was a new fact for me. I did not know that it was an overgrown tooth. Which hungry gulper eats 4 tons a day? The blue whale is the biggest creature ever to have lived, yet it feeds on some of the smallest animals. Blue whales eat krill, swallowing more than 4 million each day during the summer months when they come to feed in polar waters. Why are polar seas so lively? The ocean around the poles are teeming with life. Cold water absorbs more oxygen, and currents carry nutrients to the surface, where they feed the phytoplankton, microscopic plants eaten by krill, which are the more important food for many sea creatures. So it has a lot of food source for the sea life. What are krill? Krill are tiny shrimp-like animals that gather in swarms up to 4 miles long during the polar summers, often during the water peak. 1 gallon of water can contain 250 krills. Wow, that's a lot. What does Antarctica tell us about space? The only place colder than Antarctica in outer space. So it is the best place on Earth to test the space robot of the future. Underwater vehicle endurance has been studying Lake Bonny. Lake Bonny. But one day it might explore the ocean that scientists believe lies beneath the icy crust of Europa, one of Jupiter's largest moons. Why is Antarctica a meteorite hotspot? There is nowhere better to search for meteorites because they're so easy to see on the Antarctic ice sheet. Nomad is a robotic meteorite hunter that can tell the difference between a meteorite and a normal rock. Some of the meteorites it has found came from Mars. Wow, very cool. Why is ice like a time machine? Each layer of snow contains clues to what is happening in the world. By drilling out cores from polar ice, scientists can unlock the past and learn about the volcanic eruptions, forest fires, dust storms, and temperature changes that occur up to 750,000 years ago. So the ice tells them a lot of information about our past and what happened on Earth. Who pollutes the poles? Sadly, humans' activities sometimes produce chemicals and oil spills that pollute our Earth. Winds and ocean currents may carry these pollutants to the poles, where they can harm the creatures that live there. What is the ozone hole? Ozone is a gas in our upper atmosphere that protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. Human-made chemicals can destroy ozone, and every spring the ozone layer above Antarctica has been getting thinner. A smaller ozone hole has recently appeared over the Arctic too. What if all the polar ice melted? If the polar ice caps melted, the sea would rise by about 200 feet and many low-lying countries would be flooded. But it would take thousands of years for this to happen. Who lives there? And then these are all of the animals that live in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and then both Arctic and Antarctic. All right, guys, that is some cool. And then the back is the index. So if you wanted to look up something specific, you could go to it. Say, all right, I'm gonna go read about meteorites on page 28. And then you can flip to that page. All right, there it is. I wonder why penguins can't fly. And we have answered that question. Okay, now we're going to do our activity for this lesson. So we learned about main idea and details at the beginning of the story. So that's what we're going to do. And we read the book, right? So we're going to figure out what the main idea of a section of this book. So not the whole book, because they talked about a lot of different things in this book. But we're just going to talk about one section of this book, what the main idea of it is, and what are some details that support that main idea. So we're actually going to do the question here. I wonder why penguins can't fly. So I'm going to go to this section of that part of the book where they talk about it. And I'm going to reread it real quick. Why can't penguins fly? Most birds have lightweight skeletons, but penguins have heavy, solid bones and a thick layer of fat to keep them warm. They would need huge wings to lift themselves up into the air. Instead, their wings have turned into small, stiff flippers that power their streamlined bodies through the water. So let's find the main idea. What is this section mostly about? And then we're going to do 3 details for that main idea. And you each got an ice cream cone. So take your ice cream cone out, and we're going to do a little art activity here to find the main idea and details. So you can copy down what I'm writing, okay? I want you guys just to practice. We're practicing together how to find the main idea and the 3 details. So what was the main idea of this section of the book? Well, the main idea was that penguins can't fly, right? That's what it's mostly about. It's what they talk about. So we're going to write here on the cup part of our sundae that penguins can't fly. That's our main idea. Once you have that written down, so if you need to pause the video, you can. I'm going to move on to the details now. Now we have to think of 3 details that we read about in that section of the book. One of them is that penguins have heavy, solid bones. Okay, so that's part of the reason why they can't fly. So they have heavy, solid bones. So I'm going to put that on the cherry part since that's smaller. It's not as much information. So heavy, solid bones. Pause the video and put that on your cherry. The next one is that they have a thick layer of fat to keep them warm. So they have these heavy solid bones, but they also have a thick layer, layer of fat to keep them warm. Okay, so if they have all this fat around that bone, that weighs them down, right? Makes them heavy so they can't fly. Pause the video and do that one. And then the last detail why they can't fly is that it says that their wings have turned into small, stiff flippers. This is what helps power them through the water to have them swim strong and fast. So that's the last detail why they can't fly. Is that their wings are flippers to help them swim. Their wings are flippers to help them swim. Once you have these things all done, now we're gonna put our ice cream cone together. So we will have to cut out each of these pieces. So pause the video and you're gonna cut out the cherry, you'll cut out the bowl with one of the scoops of ice cream, and then you'll cut out the topping. It looks maybe caramel or chocolate topping. All right, so once you've cut out your pieces, I found a colored piece of paper that I was gonna glue them on. If you don't have this at home, that is totally fine. Any piece of paper will do, or maybe in your journal. So the bottom part is going to be obviously our sundae, so the bowl and the ice cream. So we have our main idea, penguins can't fly. So we're gonna glue that on our piece of paper. Pause the video until you're done with that. And then I'm gonna put on my topping. So I need to put, I think this might, I'm gonna say it's caramel. A caramel topping, because I like caramel on my ice cream. I'm gonna put that on the next layer. Kind of goes over one of my details, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna glue the cherry on top. That gives us our sundae. So if you want to color around it, you can. So we have our main idea and our 3 details from a part of the story that we read today. Take a picture of your sundae and send it to us on Seesaw so we can see your amazing hard work.